Hi, everybody. I wanted to come back and just do a really short video because I was going back through my videos and a video that I posted about a month ago, February the 28th. Um, that I think it was titled something about I am not the problem. And I mentioned that in my other, I keep saying that because people keep trying to make me the problem, and I'm not the problem. But I was watching that video because it's the most watched video that I have so far, 192 people. And thank you so much for watching. Um, well, I just wanted to give you an update because in that video, I was talking about the phone that I had gotten for my grandmother. Um, and I had to stop watching the video because it triggered me. Um, they took my grandmother's phone away from her. Uh, Long story short, I had bought my grandmother the phone, as I said, so that she could, have a renewed sense of independence because the phone that I had bought for her a few years ago, she never learned to use. And so I found that picture phone. You can go back and see that video. Um, but what was going on was that my mother was monitoring the phone. And so when I would call, the phone would never pick up. But if other relatives in my grandmother's contacts would call, then the phone would pick up. And I suspected that that's what my mother was doing. I have a sort of relationship with my mother. She's always treated me like I was nothing. And she would tell you that she was harder on me than she was on the rest of her children because my father, who died back in October 18th, 2022, um, well, went to prison when I was 2 weeks old. So my mother was angry with him and took it out on me. But then the other issue is that my mother has an issue with colorism. So I'm my mother's darkest child. And so even after, my father got out of prison, never went back. They, you know, reconciled, became good friends. But she still treated me like crap. I mean, to the point that for 22, um, for over 20 something years, she did not um, wish me a happy birthday. She would wish my husband a happy birthday. I mean, she would call him and send him a card, but not me. So, she's just that's who she is. She calls herself a Christian woman. Of course, she's a Trump supporter, um, African American. My mother's not white, wants to be white. Um, but anyway, she was monitoring the phone calls. And so, excuse me, I'm thinking that something is wrong with the telephone. So I'm calling support, technical support for the phone. So one of the things that he told me to do, and I forgot that it had this feature, you can put the phone on auto answer, and it's a safety mechanism. So then he said, put it on auto answer. He said, if the phone picks up, then there's nothing wrong with the phone. So I put it on auto answer, and and the phone did pick up, and I could hear somebody's television. I don't know if it was my mother's television or my grandmother's television. But I kept, calling for my grandmother, Mommy, Mommy, are you there? Are you there? So then I tried a couple of times. Well, I finally got her, like on, this was like a Thursday or something. Well, anyway, what I was trying to do was she would have to hold the phone to her ear because she's hard of hearing. So, but if she holds the phone to her ear really good, then she can hear. The thing about it is, I mean, the hand gets tired you know. So I mean, she's 99 years old for heaven's sakes. Even I mean, I'm 61. My hand gets tired. People who are 25, their hand gets tired. So my hand got tired. Her hand was getting tired. So what I proposed was that I get her some earbuds. So then I sent her some earbuds down there. And of course, my mother didn't want to help her out with them. So I told my mother, I said, well, I'll come down and I'll help her. And this, people, that's a 4.5 hour drive on a good day. Okay. But I was willing to go down there, plug the auxiliary um, wire into the plug, into the phone, and voila, she could put the earbuds in and she could hear what was being said. But my mother, she didn't want to help her, and she was like, "Well," and as I told you that my sister has barred me from the house. So then I said, "Well, just tell my sister, that I would just come down." And here was the arrangement. The arrangement was that I could come down while my sister was at church with the admonition, "You had better be gone by the time I get back." So, but my mother wouldn't do it. She wouldn't ask my sister, well, you and your sister need to straighten this out. Well, how am I going to straighten it out if my sister doesn't even take my phone calls? If, I'm blocked from text messages. So I said, can you just please ask her? And well, things aren't straightened up between you and I. You know, I mean, my mother is, she's salty with me about a statement that I made. No, because I told her. My mother is nasty. My mother treats me mean. And I told her, I said, you know what? I'm done. You've never been my mother. I said, so, you cling to this Bible. I said, but you know what? I said, you better hope that there is nary a word in it that is true, because if it is, you're going straight to hell. Well, she was upset about that. My sister has said far worse. I'm telling you what I know. Okay. But no, this is, little Ricky, the one who was called the dumb one, the retarded one, you know, and the one who used to take a whole lot of crap off of them. See, now they don't like me. And I told him, I said, see, you all used to like me because I would take a lot of crap off of y'all. I said, now that I don't take a lot of crap off of you, then, now you don't like me anymore. Okay, fine. But I had been calling my mother, trying to reconcile the whole nine yards. So, you know, she was on my grandmother's phone talking to me. For weeks, this is Miss Christian. For weeks, she had not picked up the telephone when I was calling. And then she stopped picking up the phone for one of my nieces because she knew that she talked to me. This is my mother. This is my mother, the Christian. Okay. See, that's why I'm so tired of y'all, you know, with this mess. As my grandmother would call it, doing your devilment and think you're going to heaven anyhow. Okay, we'll see. So my mother wouldn't do that, but then I said to her, because she said, well, I told you that she wasn't going to use it. I said, you don't want her to use it. And she hung the phone up on me. That's the last time I talked to my mother, was about over 2 weeks ago. Because the other problem is that my mother is insanely jealous of my grandmother. So it's like you can't do anything for my grandmother unless you just do something for my mother too. But this was my grandmother's birthday, and I always give my grandmother her birthday present early because it's always something cool, and it's always something. When I get it, it's like you got to try this now. And what I wanted was that for her, that when her birthday came on May 4th, that she would be so attuned to using this phone, which is very easy to use, that she could receive phone calls on her own phone. So you can only put 30 contacts in the phone. The phone was set up so that only the people who were in her contacts could call her, because we didn't want her to be having to deal with spam and robocalls and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, but what I had planned on doing was for her birthday, for like that weekend, because her birthday is on a Thursday. So from Thursday to Sunday, I was going to lift that so that anybody in the family who wanted to call her or her, well, all of her friends are gone. Anyway, anybody in the family who wanted to call her and wish her a happy birthday could call her and wish her a happy birthday. But her phone kept she kept missing my calls. And I knew what my mother was doing. So then I forgot that the auto answer was on it. So then when I called tech support for the telephone, he said, turn on the auto answer. He said, if it picks up, that means that there's nothing wrong with the phone. And I did that, so there was nothing wrong with the phone. So one night I called close to the time that my grandmother would be getting her medicine to see if I could catch her. So I put it on auto and it picked up. And I'm like, Ma, then I could hear the TV and then it hung up. Somebody hung their phone up and it wasn't my grandmother. So then I called back again. Same thing happened. Third time I called, then it picked up, um, but then I couldn't hear anything. So I kept, calling my mother. I call her Lamora. And I said, Lamora, I know you're there. Please let me speak to grandma. Please let me speak to mommy. And so she didn't. So I hung the phone up. And then one day one of my nieces told me that she had talked to my mother the day before. And my mom said that my grandmother had been sleeping a lot and that she hadn't been herself. But that's not true. My grandmother was fine. So my niece told her, she said, well, I'll try her tomorrow and see how she's doing. So my niece was able to get her that day. I tried and couldn't get her. So I'm like, wait a minute. She just got off the phone with my niece. Why isn't she answering for me? This is my mother's crap. Okay. So I I waited, and then I think the next day, no, later that night. No, it wasn't at night, it was afternoon. So later that afternoon, I called it and I let it pick up auto. And I'm like, Mommy, Ma, are you there? Ma, pick your phone up. Pick your phone up. And then she was like, huh. I woke her up. And so she picked up the phone. She was like, oh, hi. And I'm like, I've been trying to call. I said, I've been calling you almost for a week. She said, you have? I said, yeah. And she said, well, something to the effect of why didn't I call my mother? I said, well, she won't answer the phone. She said, she won't answer the phone. I said, no. But then I just changed the subject, talked to my grandmother, and I'm going to tell you, I was so afraid to hang that phone up because something told me that that was going to be the last time I was going to talk. And we hung up. So then a few days go by and I still can't get her again. So then, like I told you, my mother's not answering the phone for me. My husband called my mother. Remember, I told you she would call him and wish him a happy birthday and not me. Send him birthday cards, but now she's not talking to him either. So she wouldn't answer for him. So then my husband decided to call my sister. She did pick up the phone and claimed that my grandmother's phone was on. And I said, no, it's not. It is not on. So then he texted her and he said, well, no, it's not on. So then he asked her if we could come to the house just like we did before that coming Sunday and turn the phone back on for my grandmother, show her how to turn it back on, and if it goes off, then my sister and my mother wouldn't have to be bothered. Well, then that's when my sister told my husband that She had that phone turned off. The old phone that my grandmother can't use turned back on. Claimed that I had put a listening device in her house without permission. First of all, it's not a listening device. That auto answer is for safety when a person can't answer the phone. But even even so, my sister doesn't talk to me. So if you're not talking to me, then how am I going to get permission from you? Then she claimed that I was putting ideas in my grandmother's head and said that because of your wife, grandma is now on an antidepressant. My grandmother doesn't live with me, number one. Number two, as my husband told her, he said, your house is not a sanctuary of peace. And let's be clear about this. My sister, up until this past January, ran the streets while her boyfriend took care of my grandmother. And my mother and my grandmother were called me because when he told them that he was moving, getting his own place, he said my grandmother grabbed her head and started crying because she knew that my sister would be coming back full time and that she'd have to deal with her. I'm not the one who's responsible for my 99-year-old grandmother being on an antidepressant, and she's never been on an antidepressant a day in her life, and that woman has been through so much stuff. So I will probably, it is very unlikely that I will see, because my brother is in cahoots with my mother and my sister, and I'm borrowed from his house too. This issue of borrowing people, I mean, they're taking this, this is my house, this is my house, this is my house. Okay. But they have really taken that too far, to the extreme. So I had to get permission from my sister to get my grandmother a phone that she could use. And my husband also told her, he said, not only is the auto device, the auto answer, a safety device, he said, there's also a 911 button because my mother and grandmother are there alone a lot. He said, what if something happens to your mother? What is your grandmother supposed to do then? She can't operate my mother's phone. She can't operate the old phone. All she would have had to do would be to tap the 911 button on her phone, the new phone that I bought her. There's a GPS on the phone. They would have been able to find. But see, this is just what some crazy ass family members do. And this is not about, so she was saying that she could not have me come to the house or be around my grandmother because, she has to keep my grandmother and my mother safe. This is the woman who ran the streets while her boyfriend was taking care of my grandmother and my mother. And thankfully, he's a really good man. So my sister claimed that she mailed the phone back. Haven't gotten the phone back. So I don't have the phone and I'm out of $400. And my grandmother has to pay her Verizon bill still with the phone that she can't even use. So I just thought that I would come back on and just tell that story because I was looking at that. I started looking at that video and I got triggered. Um, I'm still not the problem. It's not my fault. There's nothing wrong with me. And I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to bless my grandmother. She raised me. I'm her namesake. And I love her dearly. I'll be fine. This hurts. I can't tell you how bad this hurts. But it's nothing I can do. It is what it is. Anyway, this is Dr. Erica L. Coleman signing off. I hope y'all have a really wonderful night. I'm going to try to. I got to breathe. As you can see in the background, I have, so much stuff that, reminds me of beauty, of hope, of, staying focused, being balanced, and staying hopeful. But if I never see my grandmother again on this side of Jordan, it's fine. It's fine. It should not be this way. And if somebody would have told me that any of this would be happening, I would have never believed it. But people who are power hungry and control hungry, and this is what my sister and my mother and my brother are doing. This is not about safety, this is about power. And my brother and my sister have this very weird relationship. Um, they both went through um, a very extensive addiction recovery programs, and they have both have been sober for a number of years. Unfortunately, because my brother shouted at me, "Get help!" Because I got really upset, and of course, I'm not supposed to get upset about anything, but I got really upset, and we got into a shouting match, and he was like, "Get help!" And I said, "Oh, like you and our sister?" I said, "You two may have gotten help, and it may have gotten you sober, but it did not make you better people. We all need to do better." Good night, everybody.